Hey, I'm Angie.
And I'm Aislinn.
On today's episode of the Food Hero Cooking Show, we are making cheesy polenta pie. So let's go ahead, wash our hands, and we will meet you back here.
Being a food hero is fun. Yeah.
Okay, Aislinn, are you ready to get started? Okay, so today we kind of have multiple steps, and what I'm going to start you on first is this pie has a cornmeal type topping. So Aislinn's going to get started on making that. We do need to cook it for a little bit on the stove top. So the ingredients for this, I'm going to step around you here, are cornmeal and then some sugar, some salt, some seasoning, some water, and then we'll stir some cheese in at the end. Now I was out of cornmeal and I've actually made this before. I use masa harina, which my family kind of likes the flavor of that a little bit better. And so if you're out of cornmeal, that works as a nice substitute. So go ahead and put that in, Aislinn. And I'm going to let you mix that with the sugar, salt, and water.
Okay. Next is 1 teaspoon of salt.
1 teaspoon of salt.
So this is my teaspoon.
Yep.
1 teaspoon of sugar. 1 teaspoon of chili powder.
Remember, you don't like it when it's too spicy, so
That?
you want to do a scant teaspoon?
Yes.
If it's not quite full, we call that a scant teaspoon. And Aislinn doesn't like too much spice, she says. All right? And then we're going to go ahead, Aislinn, and you can just pour the water in there.
That's a lot of water.
It's 2.5 cups. I measured it out in our liquid measuring cup, right? Because we always measure liquids in a liquid measuring cup.
Does that make cornmeal when you put water in it?
Well, what it's going to do is it's going to make our nice corn topping like we had. Remember I made this before, you guys really liked it. So I'm going to head over to the stove with Aislinn, and I'm going to actually have her watch this. This needs to cook for a few minutes with constant stirring. So she's going to take care of that while I show you some other things. But let's get her started on that first. So what I'm going to have her do, she's going to be, now I want to talk about a few things. So one of the things I want you to look at here, Aislinn, okay? We always want to make sure that our handles are turned inward so that you wouldn't accidentally, what would happen if you accidentally hit that and it flipped over?
It would towards your meat.
It could potentially burn you. Yes, it would go towards you. So we always keep the handles turned, okay? And we can actually turn it this way so you could hold it. I want you to hold the handle while you're stirring it. And Aislinn's done this many times before. The other thing I'm going to look at here is you can see how her apron tie is kind of towards the heat, and I don't want that. So I'm going to take her apron and I'm going to actually tie it in the back to keep her safer. So this is more comfortable for Aislinn to have the handle on this side. And so she's going to very carefully watch this and constantly stir it while it thickens. So as always, remember, be very careful when you're working with heat. And Aislinn's done this many times before, so I'm going to trust her to do this, to be very careful. Okay? And she's just going to kind of keep an eye on it and then just keep constantly stirring it so it doesn't stick to the bottom and burn. Once it starts bubbling, you tell me, okay? All right, so I'm going to get started on the rest of the pie over here. So I've already browned some ground beef with some diced onion and also some fresh garlic, okay? Now, this recipe calls for 1/2 pound of ground beef. And I don't know about you, but my ground beef comes in 1 pound containers. So I've told you before, I get it from my dad, but even if you're purchasing it from the store, it usually comes in 1 pound. So what I've done is I've actually taken out half of what I browned, put it in a container, and put it in the freezer because I could potentially use that at another time, and it would make my meal preparation at that point very quick. So that's a tip. The other tip I have is if you don't want to have meat in it, if you want to make this a vegetarian dish, you can leave the meat out completely, okay? And then what you would start with is just kind of browning your onion or softening your onion in some oil instead of with the ground beef, and using an extra can of black beans. So a can of drained black beans can sub in for the ground beef if you want this completely vegetarian, or if you just don't have time to brown the ground beef, which is sometimes what I do. I'll use beans when I just don't have time. All right, so I'm going to turn that down just a little bit because it's going to take Aislinn a minute over there, and I'm going to show you some other things. Okay, so this recipe calls for corn, and you can use fresh, frozen, or canned corn. Today, corn's in season. My local farmers have got lots of corn, so we are enjoying the fresh corn. So I've just shaved this right off the cob, okay? And, you know, of course, you always want to have a flat surface when you're shaving it. Down here. But I will give you a tip, okay? If you are an adult and you've done this safely many, many times before, I have a tip for you that will make your life easier. If you can get a container with a flat bottom, okay, and just shave this into a container, it is much, much less mess. And that's what I've done with the rest of it, okay? Just remember, this is for adults only who have experience with knives, and only if you have a container that has a nice flat bottom. Perfect. That is thickened up nicely. Good job, Aislinn. All right, so we're going to bring this over here very carefully. And I'm going to tell you a tip. Normally, okay, right now you would stir in the cheese, but I'm going to wait just a little bit because I have one daughter who cannot have dairy. The rest of us love it. So I'm going to keep a small portion out and make a small corner for her without cheese, and I'll show you that in a minute. So we're going to let that sit. It's ready to go. And we're going to get the rest of our ingredients in here. So all of our corn is going to go in here. Okay, so I'm going to get diced tomatoes in here. So just canned diced tomatoes. Super simple. You could use fresh tomatoes too, but the canned ones come together quick. Okay, so next is a can of kidney beans. All right, and they've been drained and rinsed. Get a little bit of extra sodium off of them. And you can use any kind of bean you want. If you wanted to use pinto beans, like I said before, if you're subbing for meat, you just add extra black beans if you want, or any kind of bean. Any bean works great, whatever is your favorite. And you can also, again, use canned, or if you cook them from dry, that would be fine too. All right, we got the cumin, Aislinn. So next we need chili powder. Okay, so it calls for a tablespoon. I will say if you have people who don't like as much heat, you probably want to use a little less. Aislinn likes a little less, and then what we do is the rest of us just add more chili powder at the end. So you can do it that way too.
I did.
So we need a tablespoon. So we got to do more than that. That's only a half teaspoon.
That's a lot. I'll do 3 of these.
Okay, that sounds perfect. So that's about half the amount, and then the rest of us can add more. But I like it with a tablespoon, a full tablespoon. Just kind of adjust it to your family's taste. That's kind of any recipe. Adjust it to what your family likes. Maybe you like even more. I don't know. All right, and while you do that, I am going to go ahead and do the oregano.
Let me mix that. Chili
Remember,
powder.
be careful. Okay, so this calls for a half teaspoon of oregano, but we really like oregano, so I'm going to do a full teaspoon of oregano.
Yummy oregano.
Okay. Aislinn, I'm going to have you do half teaspoon of salt and a half teaspoon of pepper.
Half teaspoon of salt.
And I am going to do the teaspoon of garlic powder. And again, this is kind of double the garlic because I did put fresh garlic in with the ground beef too, but we like garlic, huh?
Yeah, pepper's a little spicy.
Okay.
And
We're going to get that heated through. Okay. All right, we'll get that heated through. Get all the spices mixed in there, and then we're going to go ahead and put our topping on. And then the topping takes about 10 minutes to cook, but it all cooks right here in the skillet. So you can see how good that looks, and that smells good, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
If you want to put more veggies in, sometimes I'll, if I have a green pepper on hand, I'll actually brown that with the ground beef too, and that makes it real nice. Okay, that looks good. All right, so it's time for our cornmeal topping. I'm going to do one corner for Avery here, and the way we're going to know that's Avery's corner is you're going to sprinkle some more chili powder on top of that. So can you sprinkle some more chili powder on top of Avery's? No, not that much. A little less. Okay, perfect. We know that's Avery's corner. And we'll kind of smooth that out. She loves extra spice. Okay, now grab the cheese. Okay, and I love spatulas that are heat resistant. You can use them for everything. So, okay, go ahead and put the cheese in here. We're going to stir it in. Dump it in. And it's still warm, so that'll get nice and melty. All right, so if you have one of these, this is actually a frosting spreader, but I feel it works very nicely for this as well. Just gonna get that nice layer over the top. Okay. See that cheese in there? We can see Avery's corner. Don't want to get any cheese in over there though. Then you're gonna just kind of turn that down a little bit. You're gonna put the lid on, and you're gonna let that cook. And you're gonna leave the lid just slightly ajar. All right, and turn it down because you want to make sure you're turning it down so that the bottom of your pie doesn't scorch. while the top is cooking. So you're gonna turn it down to about simmer. Okay, and it is done. Aislinn has, well, you got it on your apron too. She's already chowed down. She loved it. Her dad, my husband, came home from lunch and he had some too, and I am going to have some now. So I do want you to know, this took a little bit longer than 10 minutes, and it usually does on mine to get a little bit more firm. You can eat it before it's completely firm, though. We actually kind of like it. Aislinn likes it when it's a little softer, so whatever your family prefers. But we hope you enjoy this cheese polenta pie just as much as we do. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Being a food hero is fun. Yeah, yeah, yeah.